we're back on the American Dream Business Roundtable. And Greg, you were talking about, prior to the break, about your first business, Pro Biz Services. And that was when you had actually been through graduate school, correct?
Yeah. Again, it started out as a typing service, and it was a nice arrangement. And after that, I became a contractor primarily. I did taxes in the wintertime, but if you don't have very many clients, it doesn't take very long to get all those taxes done.
So when did you become a tax preparer?
Right about the same time, about 1981.
So you were taking classes to enhance that Pro Biz Services, correct?
No, this was after my MBA.
Oh, your MBA, okay.
But I did start working in the financial services industry. I sold insurance and investments, and I worked with a firm out of Middletown that was very much involved in venture capital packaging, is what we call that.
Okay.
And I basically learned that side of the business then. And these were tax planned investments, which meant that we were going toe-to-toe with the IRS on a regular basis. The company was, I wasn't, but I learned at a deep level, I guess, that the IRS is no organization to be afraid of. They're human beings there, and there's a set of rules that they have to follow. So if you know what the rules are and you can quote chapter and verse to any of their agents, they have to follow them. So unfortunately, way too many accountants don't feel that way or don't understand that concept, and I don't know, for whatever reason, they seem to be a little bit too timid.
Well, let me ask this question. It reminds me of when I lived in Singapore, where if you dot your I's and you cross your T's with the government, you know, their IRS or their government officials, and you want to start a business, and that's what I used to teach, starting a new business, you know, as a Western person or another type of European or whatever, in Singapore. And so I taught people how to start their own business in a foreign country. Because I worked with them all the time. So it made it easy. So it's similar, correct? If you dot your T's and you dot your I's, you cross your T's and you dot your I's, right?
Well, yeah. Again, there are rules that you have to follow, but once you know those rules, it's pretty straightforward. And unfortunately, accounting, tax, and those kind of paralegal kinds of things are knowledge-based, and the knowledge is not distributed equally amongst the population. And so you have, unfortunately, this situation where it makes a world of difference who does your taxes and who is helping you with those kinds of things.
Because there are some accountants that do taxes and there's other accountants that don't.
Absolutely. Well, and I met many contractors who had gotten in trouble with their accountants, well, with the IRS. And part of the problem was that, unfortunately, they did what their accountants told them to do, but it was the wrong thing. And that really bothered me, that the contractor didn't know what, you know, that's why he hired out an expert, but the experts were getting them in trouble. And I still see this today with payroll companies, different kinds of tax preparers. In one level, one kind of mistake that they make is putting down things that are incorrect. And the other kind of mistake that they make is not taking full advantage of the tax code and not sharing that kind of information with their clients. For example, not allowing their clients to write off mortgage interest. That's a standard thing.
Yeah, it is a standard thing.
But unfortunately, I've encountered situations where accountants would not let their clients do that. Or the big one is where they're so afraid of home-based businesses.
Really?
Yes, and they won't let their clients. It's like waving a red flag. And anytime an accountant says that to a client, we have to understand what they're really saying when they say, well, it's like waving a red flag in front of the IRS, and I don't want to put all that stuff on your tax return. Well, that means, wait a minute, there's a tax deduction or a tax credit that the client is entitled to, otherwise the whole conversation is moot. And the accountant is not willing to put that deduction down on the form for them. But wait a minute, isn't that their job? And so what the accountant is really saying is they're not willing to do their job.
Because they might have to go in front of the IRS?
Whatever. Sometimes it does have to do with the relationship. For example, there are some big tax prep firms, I won't call them accounting firms because they just do the taxes,
Right.
where they make the tax preparers answer to the IRS on their own time and on their own dime.
Are you kidding me?
Right, which means that if you're the client and there's something questionable that I should be putting down on the form, but I don't want to be trying to answer questions in the middle of August when I take all my time to do that. So I end up becoming the arm of the IRS and say, no, I'm not going to put it on the form for you. That's one of the drawbacks, in my opinion, of the big national firms.
They have to actually use their own time and their own dollars to do that?
Some of the companies have those rules where the tax preparer, remember that in the fall you'll see all these free tax classes. The national firms tend to hire from those classes. So these people have very little training. I was waiting for my Chinese dinner one night, and so I had 10 minutes and I went into the tax office right down from the Chinese restaurant, and in the course of 10 minutes the person made 2 mistakes. That quick. I asked, can I write off my home office? No, you can't. Well, that was wrong. Can I contribute to my IRA even though it's not the year's over with? No, you can't. Which is not true. You can contribute to your IRA as long as you have up until April 15th, plus extensions. So you have rules like that not everybody is aware of. But so I did taxes and accounting and things like that. But these were my contracting years during the 80s and.
How long were you a contractor?
Well, probably a decade and a half.
So you can swing a hammer and do all that kind of good stuff?
Absolutely. But mine was a little bit different in that I ran with the framing contractor for a couple years, the plumber for a couple years, and ran a concrete crew for a couple years. I did everything but HVAC.
So you could actually do a concrete driveway for me. Is that what you're telling me?
There was a time when I could.
There was a time when you could.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
But I learned a whole lot about contracting. And to this day, I still have a contracting business. It's morphed now into a different kind of business. It's called Allied Building Contractors. And now it's an association of building contractors. And what we do for them is offer them deals and discounts and things like that. So it's.
So are you kind of what with that?
Well, I don't do that much with it
like
anymore.
Like Angie's List or something like that?
Well, no, it's because I have an accounting firm that has payroll services and accounting and all these other things. I offer these people, these contractors, discounts on the kinds of services that they would need, and
right, that makes sense.
And really, what I was trying to do, and still am, create a referral base for these contractors.
Right.
Because they
Isn't
tend
that
to leave.
kind of though like Angie's List?
No, Angie is a referral-based. They assess contractors. They don't really create a referral system for them.
Okay. And on that note, we need to take a short break, and we'll be right back on the American Dream Business Roundtable with Greg Noe and Kathryn Raaker.